Imagine a Europe where half as many children are born compared to just a few decades ago, with some nations faring even worse. This is not a dystopian movie, but the reality we are facing today. Families who want children but cannot afford them, young people fleeing abroad while their countries age, and governments that seem either incapable or unwilling to truly reverse the trend. With birth rates plummeting to as low as 1.2 children per woman, many European nations are experiencing an unprecedented demographic crisis. What is happening? Is it the economy, culture, or something deeper? In this video, we will examine the 10 European countries with the lowest birth rates, analysing the causes of this alarming phenomenon and its concrete consequences for the future of the continent. And if you want to see how Europe compares to the United States and Canada, stay with us until the end. Welcome to this new video from Amazing Europe. Number 10. Croatia. Imagine a country losing almost 10% of its population in just over a decade. This is not the plot of a dystopian novel, but the harsh reality of Croatia. More than 400,000 people have left the country since 2012, and the silent crisis of declining births is accelerating this depopulation. With just 1.46 children per woman, Croatia is facing an unprecedented demographic emergency. But why is this happening? First and foremost, young people and families are emigrating en masse, attracted by better opportunities abroad, especially in Germany, which is the destination for 41% of Croatian emigrants. Those who stay are postponing parenthood, with the average age for the first child now shifting towards 30 to 34 years. Many factors influence this choice, but the primary culprit seems to be economic uncertainty. According to a reputable study, 68% of young people see financial insecurity as an insurmountable barrier to having children. Entire rural villages in Croatia are already disappearing, with some communities recording no births for over 5 years. But cities are not immune either. Young people are extremely worried about housing prices, which easily exceed €3,000 per square metre in the capital. A massive challenge in a country where the average net salary is just over €1,300. Moreover, the cost of living increases every year, driven mainly by inflation and tourism, which pushes up property prices. The numbers speak for themselves. Only 32,000 births in 2023, the lowest in the last 10 years. Many are calling for more reforms from the government. While some subsidies and bonuses have been introduced, experts argue that these measures fail to address the core issue, the economic and job instability of young couples. Number 9. Portugal. Every year, Portugal loses the equivalent of a medium-sized city. With just 1.45 children per woman, the Iberian country is facing a severe demographic crisis that threatens the sustainability of its economic and social future. The roots of this crisis are deeply embedded in Portugal's socio-economic structure. In recent years, governments have invested less and less in social policies, progressively weakening support for families. At the same time, job insecurity has reached alarming levels, particularly affecting young people who struggle to build the stability needed to start a family. In Portugal, the cost of raising a child is an almost insurmountable obstacle for many couples. Families with children spend nearly €10,000 more per year on average than those without, due to recurring monthly expenses and the general rise in the cost of living. This reality makes parenthood a luxury that many cannot afford, despite their desire for children. The exodus of young talent further worsens the situation. In recent years, tens of thousands of young Portuguese have left the country in search of better opportunities abroad. It is no surprise that a 2025 study reveals that 73% of young people consider emigrating after finishing higher education. This silent exodus deprives Portugal precisely of the demographic group in its prime reproductive years. Cultural changes also play a crucial role. Women are having children later, and the number of children born to unmarried parents is increasing. Women, torn between career aspirations and the desire for motherhood, often choose to delay or forego having children. However, more than half of those over 30 say they have fewer children than they would like. If effective measures are not taken, within a few decades, 1/3 of Portugal's population will be over 65, leaving young people to bear the burden of pensions. Number 8. Belarus. Only 65,000 babies were born in 2023. Belarus recorded its lowest birth rate ever, even lower than during World War II. With just 1.45 children per woman, the country is slipping into an unprecedented demographic crisis, threatening its economic and social future. This dramatic demographic contraction is rooted in a complex web of factors. Persistent economic uncertainty since 2014 has eroded confidence in the future. With a median salary of around €450, many couples indefinitely postpone having children, even if they wish to. The housing issue, despite state interventions, remains a significant obstacle for young families. Youth emigration is another major demographic drain, especially after the 2020 protests and subsequent crackdowns. A steady flow of young Belarusians has been leaving the country for Poland, Lithuania, and other European nations, seeking not only better economic opportunities, but also political stability and freedom. The post-Soviet and Chernobyl trauma, with 23% of the territory contaminated, weighs heavily on Belarusian collective psychology. Anxiety, depression, and fears for health and the future have influenced reproductive decisions, leading many to opt out of parenthood. Family structures are also changing. Although 80% of births still occur within marriage, the number of unions is steadily declining, reflecting new forms of cohabitation and shifting priorities. The government has implemented various support measures, from family capital and subsidised mortgages to extended parental leave. However, these initiatives have yet to reverse the downward trend in a nation that, despite still having a relatively favourable median age compared to other European countries, is ageing rapidly. Number 7. Greece. Do you know how many fewer babies are born in Greece today compared to the 1960s? The answer is shocking. 71,000 fewer births per year. This demographic decline is reshaping the face of the Hellenic nation. Today, Greek women have an average of 1.41 children each, a drastic drop compared to their grandmothers, born in the 1930s, who had an average of 2.25 children. Even more concerning, about 1 in 5 women from the 1980s generation will have no children at all, compared to just 15% of their grandmothers. In 2008, women had their first child at an average age of 28.8. Today, that age has risen to 32. This demographic transformation is rooted in a complex interplay of factors. We mentioned 2008 earlier. That year was a dark turning point for Greece. The shockwave of the economic crisis left deep scars on the country's demographic fabric. Drastic cuts to public spending dismantled social safety nets, while rising unemployment forced many couples to delay starting a family. Economic uncertainty and persistent job insecurity have eroded trust in the future. This very lack of confidence in what lies ahead seems to be a key factor in understanding the demographic decline in these nations. The phenomenon of youth emigration has further worsened the situation, depriving the country of precisely the demographic group in their prime reproductive years. Meanwhile, the median age of the population has risen to 44 years, compared to just 30 in 1960, making Greece one of the oldest countries in the European Union. We previously mentioned that Greece has only 1.41 children per woman. This figure is far below the generational replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman, which is necessary to maintain a stable population. For at least 2 decades now, the number of deaths has consistently outnumbered births, painting an increasingly unsustainable demographic future. Number 6. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Today, only 24,000 children are born in Bosnia and Herzegovina each year, half the 60,000 births recorded just 3 decades ago. This unprecedented demographic collapse is literally cutting the future of this Balkan nation in half within a single generation. The country is experiencing a silent hemorrhage of its most valuable human capital. It's not just about numbers. Young people between the ages of 18 and 40, educated and in their prime reproductive years, are packing their bags and leaving. As demographer Amer Osmic points out, Bosnia is losing precisely the segment of the population that is vital for both reproduction and economic development. This massive exodus is rapidly transforming the country's demographic landscape. The median age, which was already 39 in 2013, has now surpassed 44, making Bosnia a nation of elderly people, with a population structure increasingly unsuited for regeneration. Between 2013 and today, Bosnia is estimated to have lost between 150,000 and 300,000 inhabitants. This exodus has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the growing ease of obtaining visas for Western European countries, with Germany being the top destination. At the root of this demographic crisis lies widespread dissatisfaction with the entire social system. Young graduates see no prospects for improvement in their home country. Paradoxically, despite this issue being well known for at least 15 years, there has been no effective political response. Regional disparities worsen the phenomenon. Areas such as Unasana Canton and the Tuzla region are experiencing an alarming population decline, while Sarajevo shows positive dynamics thanks to internal migration. The latest 2024 data confirms the trend. In this country, each woman has an average of only 1.38 children. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a nation that is literally disappearing before our eyes. Number 5. Poland. Poland is facing a historic demographic collapse, with the number of births in 2023 at its lowest recorded level, a trend that has continued into 2024. The fertility rate has dropped to 1.32 children per woman, and the average age at first childbirth has risen to 28.8 years, 33 in cities. Meanwhile, 40% of young people aged 20 to 39 are not in stable relationships, and nearly half are in precarious employment. The causes of this birth rate crisis are the subject of intense debate. The left attributes the problem mainly to housing difficulties, the challenge of balancing work and family life, and what they consider restrictive laws, such as those on abortion. The right, on the other hand, argues that social changes also play a significant role. On the one hand, there is the positive fact that women are studying and achieving personal success. On the other, however, this success, according to them, may lead to prioritizing career over family, resulting in fewer children. Economist Gary Becker highlights how having children presents women with a difficult choice between motherhood and career, a sacrifice not all are willing to make. Becker also points out the paradox that wealthier couples often choose to have fewer children, stating that they do so to invest more financial resources in each child. We are very curious to hear your opinion on the real causes of Europe's low birth rate. The Polish government has introduced family support measures, such as the Rodzina 800 Plus program, which provides a monthly allowance of 800 zloty per child, up from the previous 500 zloty. However, these initiatives have so far not been enough to reverse the demographic decline. The situation remains critical, with long-term implications for the country's future. Number 4. Spain. In Spain, the birth rate stands at just 1.3 children per woman, the fourth lowest in Europe, despite the fact that most Spaniards say they want 2 children. This alarming discrepancy reveals a rapidly accelerating demographic crisis. Why is there such a gap between desire and reality? According to Spaniards, the main obstacle once again appears to be economic. Raising a child costs around €700 per month, an unaffordable sum in a country where 12.7 million people live at risk of poverty. Job insecurity and high housing costs force young people to postpone independence until their 30s, while the average age for purchasing a home is an astonishing 41 years. It's no surprise that Spanish women have their first child at almost 31, one of the highest ages in the world. This delay further reduces the likelihood of having a second child, fueling a vicious cycle. Fewer births today mean fewer potential parents tomorrow. The state invests only 1.5% of GDP in family and child social protection, well below the European average of 2.4%. However, some argue that the birth rate crisis is not just about economics. South Korea and Japan, despite massive investments in family policies, still have extremely low fertility rates. Several experts believe that the failure of these policies proves that a purely economic approach is not enough. Additionally, Some Spanish sociologists argue that motherhood presents a far greater obstacle to careers than fatherhood. They emphasize that the unequal burden of childcare, which falls primarily on mothers, discourages them from having children to avoid compromising their careers. What do you think about this issue? Number 3. Italy. Only 379,890 babies were born in 2023, a 3.4% decrease from the previous year, a new all-time low for Italy, which has been experiencing relentless demographic decline since 2008. The birth rate now stands at just 1.26 children per woman. If this trend continues, Italy could lose 5 million inhabitants by 2050. Yet, Italy's fertility gap reveals a surprising truth. Italians actually desire more than 2 children on average. This suggests that the issue is not a lack of desire, but rather a series of structural obstacles preventing people from having the families they want. Italian women become mothers at 31.7 years old, the highest age in Europe. 11% of them have never worked in order to take care of their families, while over 30,000 women with small children resign from their jobs every year. The burden of childcare remains dramatically unbalanced in a country with poor parental support services. Italian psychologists are raising the alarm. Crucial psychological factors are at play. Many Italians are held back by the fear of investing too much in their children, tormented by doubts about their ability to be good parents. Additionally, the feeling of staying young for longer leads many to delay having their first child, often until they are past their fertile years. Alessandro Rosina, a demographer at Università Cattolica, highlights that Italy has failed to shift from seeing children as a cost to recognizing them as a collective value worth investing in. Letizia Mencarini from Bocconi University is even more blunt. Economic measures for families are mere cosmetic fixes, not structural solutions. A child costs an average of €640 per month and represents the second leading cause of poverty after job loss, in a country where job insecurity is widespread and 66% of young people express anxiety about the future. Italy is trapped in a vicious cycle. The few children born yesterday are the few parents of today, who are now aging and facing a shrinking family and social support network. Number 2. Moldova. In just 9 years, Moldova has lost more than a third of its newborns, from 41,000 in 2014 to just 24,000 in 2023, with a dramatic 11% drop in the last year alone, a demographic crisis that threatens the very future of the country. The birth rate has plummeted to 9.8 births per 1,000 inhabitants, less than half of what it was just 10 years ago, while deaths have outnumbered births for almost 25 years, a negative cycle that seems unstoppable. Today, there are only 1.26 children per woman. The forecasts are alarming. According to Eurostat, by 2100, Moldova's population is expected to shrink by nearly 40%, making it one of the countries most at risk of disappearing. The causes of this demographic collapse are multiple. Emigration plays a crucial role. Entire generations of young people leave the country in search of better opportunities, starting families abroad. In 2023, 16.2% of households with children had at least one family member working outside the country. Moreover, Moldova also faces a severe infertility problem. 1 in 5 families cannot have children due to infertility, including an increasing rate of male infertility. Additionally, the average age at marriage has risen to around 30 years, leaving a limited reproductive window. Of course, economic difficulties are the first to be blamed for the declining birth rates. As expert Valerio Saintsius points out, the current state allowances do not even cover the minimum cost of living for a mother and child. Furthermore, Dr. Yuri Dondiuk from the Ministry of Health highlights how postponing parenthood for economic or career reasons leads to age-related fertility problems. Almost half of Moldovan families, 48%, have only one child, while at least 2 children per family would be needed to reverse the trend. Before revealing number 1 and comparing these figures with the United States and Canada, if you found this video informative, we kindly ask you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss our new videos. It costs you nothing, but it helps us immensely in growing our project. Thank you so much. Number 1. Ukraine. Only 187,000 babies were born in 2023, the lowest number ever recorded since Ukraine's independence. The war has turned an already serious demographic crisis into an unprecedented national emergency. Ukraine was facing demographic difficulties long before the Russian invasion. Since 2013, the country has experienced an annual birth decline of about 7%. The fertility rate, already concerning at the beginning of the century, has dropped to 1.22 children per woman in 2024, far below the 2.1 needed for generational replacement. The pre-war decline was driven by factors common to many countries: increasing urbanization, women's career aspirations, economic instability, youth migration, and more. The COVID-19 pandemic had also discouraged many couples from having children. But it was the outbreak of war in February 2022 that caused an unprecedented collapse. The numbers speak for themselves. Between 2021 and 2023, births dropped by 32%. The reasons are tragically clear: families separated, with men at the front, and women seeking refuge abroad, millions of people of reproductive age forced to flee the country, a constant atmosphere of insecurity with bombings and air raid sirens, stress and trauma affecting fertility, and, of course, the direct human losses caused by the war. The geography of births reflects the war's impact. In 2023, Western regions, considered safer, recorded relatively higher birth numbers than the war-affected areas. In some regions, births even increased, as a significant number of pregnant women from war-torn areas moved to Western Ukraine or abroad to give birth in safer conditions. However, if we compare all US states, all European countries, and all Canadian provinces and territories, we would discover that some places are experiencing an even worse birth rate crisis than Ukraine. Much worse. You can find out more on our new channel, America vs. Europe, particularly in our video dedicated to birth rates. We invite you to check it out and, if you'd like, support our new project by subscribing to that channel. We also encourage you to watch this video, where we reveal the 10 European countries that, according to Eurostat projections, will experience the largest population decline, without considering migration. You'll notice that some countries weren't mentioned in the video you just watched, and we'll explain why. That's all for this video. See you next time.